Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are deciding the only TBR that actually matters, my TBR for the entire year of 2026. This is my goal setting video. This is me deciding my priority reads for the year. I'm choosing 26 books that I have to read by the end of the year. And also we're going to look at the 25 books that I put on my list last year for 2025 and seeing how well I did at the TBR last year. This is now the third year that I have done this and it's always had pretty good success. The point isn't to me to read all of these books, although obviously it is. I would be so happy if I did read all of these books, but the point is for me to focus on challenging myself and also reading things that have been on my TBR for a really, really long time. So you'll see when I'm talking through my previous TBRs, it's like a very, very random eclectic mix of books. This year I've tried to have them more into different categories to make sure I'm kind of evenly balancing everything, because I did notice a trend with the ones that I wasn't finishing last year, and I want to make sure I'm like hitting all my usual like goals and buckets of different things that I want to be reading for the rest of the year. And I basically have this list as my TBR for the year, and then every month I try and take 2 or 3 books from that list to incorporate into that monthly TBR. And as you know, if you've been watching these TBRs for a while, that doesn't usually happen. Sometimes these books never get read and they get pushed over to the next month, and then the next month, and then the next month. But I'm going to try and be a lot more intentional about what I put on the list at the beginning of the year, not just dump everything on there that I'm scared of. And hopefully that will help me and I will actually finish maybe this entire list this year. So this is me being very hopeful at the beginning of the year that I am going to finish the entire list. But let's start off this video by doing a little retrospective. We're going to look at my previous year's list, see how well I did. Then I'm going to show you the main categories that I've got for this year's list, and within that the books that I've chosen. Some of these might be swapped around, especially if you have really good things in the comments for me to add. I would also really love that. But the main categories are set. And then we're going to talk about my January TBR. Yes, I'm aware that it's going to be the 18th of January by the time this video goes up. That might seem like kind of insane to be posting a TBR, but I'm going to be talking through what I've managed to read so far, what's left on the month, that kind of thing. And it's also just going to help me get a real move on with reading this month. I feel like January is always a mix. Like sometimes I read a ton in January, I feel really motivated, and sometimes I feel just a real slump after reading quite a lot in December. But anyway, let's start off this video with looking at my 2025 priority reads list. So here is the list in its entirety, but let's have a look at this in some more detail. So from this first 10, I actually read every single one of these except for one that I DNF, which is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I am actually going to count this as read though for the purposes of this challenge, because I got to well over halfway. I was about 65% into this book before I put it down. I might go back and finish it, but to be honest, I kind of know where it's going. I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of this book. Because it's a very, very long book. I'm going to count that as read because I have read the equivalent of a long book of this book. But also I just couldn't face it anymore. I was just getting so bored with the writing and it had so much promise and it just wasn't living up to it. That's the only one I haven't read from this first 10. I would say in general, these first 10, I've had amazing luck with. I really enjoyed all of these books except for one. The book that I did not get on with at all is The Overstory by Richard Powers. Really didn't enjoy this one. Was really disappointed in it because I've just heard only amazing things. And I just thought this was such a weak book. I get what it was trying to do and it did not work. And I didn't like the mechanisms used to tell the story and also just the story itself. Like parts of the writing were beautiful. There were lovely quotes in this, but just nothing came together. And it wasn't this like revolutionary kind of amazing nature ecology beautiful book that everyone talks about it like it was. I just really didn't like it, unfortunately. Everything else from this top 10 I really enjoyed. Obviously we've got Ursula K. Le Guin. She's made it to my top books of the year, so you obviously know that they are my favorites on this list. I loved both of these ones that I read, Miss Crone being her essay collection and then The Lathe of Heaven being a fiction. The other one I didn't love at all, unfortunately, and I read it very close to the end of the year, I was really rushing, is The Shadow of the God. Did not end up liking that one actually either. I didn't have that much luck with fantasy in 2025, to be honest, but I'm still glad I read it because I had been meaning to read it for a really long time. Another one that was very, very challenging for me to read is Flights by Olga Tokarczuk. I do still love Olga's writing, but this one pushed me probably to my limit with her writing. I just ended up feeling like I wasn't understanding what was happening. I felt a little bit too stupid for this book. And there's definitely I just need to like unlock some part of my understanding about this book and then I will go back to it, but it was a tough one. But let's move on to the next 10 now. Starting off also with another Kazuo Ishiguro book, a couple of books, but one of them I did not read, and that is The Unconsoled. This is one I did not manage to get to. I think it's a combination of I didn't buy the book, so I didn't have it physically on my shelf to remind me to read it. I'd read 2 other Kazuo Ishiguro books as part of this challenge and did enjoy them, but then had heard so many bad things about The Unconsoled, and so that kind of got in my head a bit. Also, it's a very long book, much longer than the others, so I don't know. This one, we'll see what happens with my 2026 list, but yeah, didn't manage to read this one. I also did not manage to read The Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, and I think this is a shame because I do think this one I would really, really love. And then I also did not manage to read The Spear That Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. This one I feel bad for not getting to. I think this one and Daughters of the Forest are because I am anticipating that I'm gonna really, really love them. And so I was kind of saving them in a weird way. Like I do that sometimes with books. When I know that something's gonna be a favorite or a 5-star, I save them for a really long time. I just need to get over that, and I still do really want to read these ones. Oh, and I also didn't read Sophie's World, a young adult book, and I just really wanted to read it because it's kind of like something everyone reads when they were young, and I didn't read it, and now I kind of feel like I want to. And I think it'll help me have a basic understanding of philosophy as well, which is something that I do not currently have. But this list has a few that I'm really, really, really happy that I read, especially Fingersmith, which I read really at the end of the year. So glad I pushed myself to read this for the end of the year. Absolutely loved it, and we'll talk about that because I did finish it in January, so we're going to be talking about that and my wrap up at the end of the month. Also, The Door, I loved, a really interesting book. And then of course, Toni Morrison, Beloved. I'm also glad that I'm carrying on reading more Toni Morrison. Let's move on and talk about just the final 5 books. And I did do better here. I read all of them except for one, which is Lonesome Dove. And this is just basically because it's a Western and it looks really, really long. And I was just like, I don't know when I'm going to be in the mood to pick this up. And I keep hearing really good things about it being like literally the best book ever. And it's one of my friend's favorite books. And I just feel like I should read it. And I'm kind of disappointed I didn't. It might be one of those ones that you eventually pick up and you're like, wait, this is so good. Because that happened a lot with this list, especially with The Luminaries. I loved this book. Another one that we're going to talk about in my January wrap up. Literally amazing. And also, obviously, you now know my love for Wolf Hall. Incredible book, made it to my top read of the year. Also, as I'm talking about these, obviously I'm saying that I read some of these at the very beginning of 2026, or I finished them at the beginning of 2026. I hadn't made my 2026 priority list yet, so I'm still counting these obviously as read because I started them in 2025. You know what I mean? Like, it's my game. I can make up my own rules. But yeah, the whole theme of this list was basically, why haven't I read this before? These were incredible reads, and I'm so glad that I read them. These 3 were the low points, the ones that I did not like and wish I didn't read, or like just didn't really get on with. And conversely, this is going to be really hard. I'll do maybe top 5 instead, but then these would be my top 5 of my priority list once I'm really, really happy that I did read. But overall, it was an overwhelming success. Like, a lot of these books were incredible, and then you just realize there's a big reason why these books are so well beloved and are such classics, and there's a reason why I initially put them on this list in the first place, and that's because they're incredible books in the most part. So I'm hoping for a better success with the number of books that I've read from the list, because this is my score for last year. So I'm hoping to get that number up. Obviously, I'm hoping to get 26 out of 26, but if I get in the 20s, I'll be pleased. If I get closer to 26, the better, obviously. But I'm hoping for really similar success with how many I love, because so many of these books are just incredible. So let's move on and talk about my 2026 priority reading list. And I want to find a catchy way to say that. So if you have got any good ideas, please put them in the comments. Okay, so like I said, there is a few different buckets that we are going to be talking about, and I've tried to keep them kind of even, because what I realized with the list last year was I wasn't reading nearly enough non-fiction, and I wasn't splitting out the amount of kind of classics there were, like older classics, to like literary kind of powerhouses. I don't know how else to explain it, but just like more recent books that are just like very, very famous for being incredible, versus doing fantasy reads that I've been meaning to read for a long time. So I'm trying to be more intentional about how we're splitting up this list, and also just to keep it a bit fresh, kind of keep them evenly split so that I feel like I'm not just reading a whole list of like 26 classics basically. But the first category that we have to talk about are books that I am going to pull over from last year to this year. And so we do have 5 books, and I think that this is I think this is all of them that I didn't read. And that is The Unconsoled, Sophie's World, The Spear That Cuts Through Water, Daughter of the Forest, and Lonesome Dove. Just when I started making this list, I just really realized, is there a point not putting the ones I didn't read last year on this year's list? Is there any reason why I wouldn't? Have I lost interest in these books? And the answer is no, I haven't lost interest in them. I still do want to read them, and I regret not trying to read them last year. So I'm going to just put them back on the list this year. The next category I'm working with, and this one I think is pretty set. I don't want too much changing here. There are other ones though that I want input from you guys into, but this is the classics. This is a mix between books that I already have on my shelf that I want to read, authors that I've been meaning to pick up, and just books that I think I've been meaning to read for a really, really long time. So for the classics section, my list currently is Middlemarch by George Eliot, which is the one I'm most nervous about, Bleak House, Charles Dickens. I'm also very nervous about this one. I have really mixed opinions about lots of Dickens, but I enjoyed the last one I read just enough that I will be putting Bleak House on here. I read David Copperfield after a lot of persuasion, and I did actually like it, so I am putting Bleak House on this list, and I'm nervous about it, but we're going to go for it. Next is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. I'm excited about this one. I've never read any Anne Bronte before. I've read from the other Bronte sisters, and Anne is the one I haven't read from, so I'm excited to start that one. Next we have The Odyssey by Homer. I was supposed to read this last year. I read the Iliad, and I was supposed to immediately follow up with the Odyssey, but the Iliad just absolutely wore me out, and I'm hoping that the Odyssey is going to be a little bit more up my street, because the Iliad it was just constant battles. Obviously the whole thing is just a war, and I was like, I can't be asked for this. Like, where's the adventure? So that's very much like what I want from the Odyssey, which I think it's going to deliver. But yeah, have to read this one at some point this year. And then the final one for the classic section is The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, which I already have on my shelf. I've had for a really long time and have not read. And it's been a while since I've read a Russian classic. I don't think I read any last year. But I read a few the year before, so I'm excited to finally get this one off my shelf as well. You will see there is a slight theme here as well of focusing on my physical TBR, because I'm trying to get that down. That's a whole nother goal for the year. Moving on to our next section, and that is non-fiction. We have 4 books here because I'm trying to ease myself in, and I really just want to focus on ones that I think are really going to be amazing. The thing is with non-fiction with me is I really like it when it's really good, but sometimes I read nonfiction and I think, could this have been an essay? Could this have been a Substack article? Could this have just been like, you've had a really good idea here, but did it need to be an entire book? And I just find, because I've got like a low attention span for nonfiction things, especially for people talking, like I can't do podcasts, for example. Like I can listen to hours and hours and hours of an audiobook, but I cannot do podcasts because I find it really repetitive, and repetition really, really grates on me. And so I find a lot with nonfiction, it's like, oh, it's starting out and it's an amazing idea that this person's had, and then they're going through and like proving their kind of thesis to you. And it just involves so much repetition. I'm like, yeah, I got it. I got it when you first said it. I got it, and I believed in it. And now just like, I need you to develop the idea or move on. And so I'm like very, very hypercritical of lots of nonfiction. But these 4 that I've got on my nonfiction section, I really think are going to be amazing. And also I would love good nonfiction recommendations from you if you're similar to me. So the ones I have on my nonfiction are Capitalism Alone, The Future of the System That Rules the World. This one I've had on my list for a really, really long time to read, like probably one of the longest I've had on my TBR. And I've heard that it is very, very good. I'm hoping it's not going to be outdated like at this point, but this is just a topic that I'm very interested in anyway, hoping it's going to be well written. Next one is one that I've seen really amazing reviews about, and that is They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us. And I'm actually not sure what this one is totally covering. I think it's a collection of essays by this author, and I don't know what I'm going to find in this book, and I kind of don't want to know. I'm excited to read it. Excited to see what it's going to be about. The next one on nonfiction is Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde. I've not read any of Audre Lorde before. This just feels like an essential read to me, and I'm looking forward to reading this one. And then the final one is one that I actually already own, and that is Ducks by Kate Beaton. I've had this on my shelf for a long time. This is the book here, and it is a graphic novel, but it's a chunky one. And it is basically about the 2 years that the author spent on the oil sands before she became a cartoonist, where she worked basically in the oil sands in Alberta. And I've heard amazing things about this one. I think it is about like capitalism, the environment, exploitation, and I think it's going to be really sad as well. I think it's a book also about trauma. But I am really looking forward to reading this. I really admired her as a comedy, like humor cartoonist for a long time. And so I'm excited to read this one as well and see if it's going to make me cry. So they're the 4 nonfictions that are on this priority list. Feeling good about these. I would love other suggestions anyway, just always, because I need to be reading more nonfiction all the time. But I'm feeling pretty good about these ones as the priorities. The next section we have is just kind of what I'm calling older fiction. Like these aren't quite classics, or they are, I get, like they're kind of like modern classics. I don't know what this is going to be. It just didn't really fit with the other categories. This list is Possession by A.S. Byatt, Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides, Dictionary of the Khazars by Milord Pavrik, and Perfume, The Story of a Murderer by Patrick Suskind. These are a mix of stuff I already have on my shelves. I'm already actually reading. If you saw my live, you know that I just started the Dictionary of the Khazars. Already I'm like, what the hell is this book? What am I reading? But I'm actually quite excited to dive into this like puzzle of a book and figure out what it is, what I can take from it, what the hell's going on basically. And the other ones are just books I've had kicking around for a while on my TBR that I want to prioritize. I feel like I wouldn't mind shifting this list around a little bit. I already own obviously Dictionary of the Khazars and Perfume and Middlesex now. And so I do want to keep those on the priority list. But then Possession, do I want to read that one? What do you recommend? What do you think? Have you read it? Do you think there's a better one to put into? Next up, we have the fantasy section. This, I do feel, still has to have a section on this 2026 list, because sometimes with fantasy, there's just a big kind of like energy needed to start the book, especially the first one in a series, especially when it's long. And I need to have the extra impetus of it being on this list to be able to start that book. And so that's why this section is here. This one though, I'm pretty sure on 2 of them I'm keeping on this list, but the other 2, if you have better suggestions, then let me know. I would love to know like your favorite fantasy series, stuff that you think is like underloved and underappreciated. I would definitely love to know what those are. But the ones I have currently are Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This one's just been on my list for such a really long time. Like I do start this list by going through my Goodreads and my Storygraph and seeing what's been on my TBR for the longest, and this is one of the ones that's been on there the longest. We also have a new book that's The Night and the Moth. I've just heard so much about this. I think this is a newer like fantasy romance. I want to know what the hype's about. I want to read this. Then also we are starting again with Robin Hobb, her next series that I'm starting, The Ship of Magic. I'm excited about this one. I've heard it's even better than the first series, the Farseer trilogy. So excited about reading this one. And then it's actually finishing off Earthsea, because I thought I finished it because I bought a trilogy book of them all bound up together, and it like kind of felt like an end after the trilogy. But then there's actually like 6 of them, or like at least 5. And I think I've read 4 now. So I want to just finish off Earthsea and like put that as finished properly. I'm pretty sure I'm keeping Ship of Magic and Earthsea. Definitely want to be continuing on with Robin Hobb and obviously Ursula K. Le Guin. The other 2, if you make a good case for them, I will swap these out for other ones. But the final section that I want to talk about is the literary fiction section. So this is just straight up literary fiction that I want to read in 2026. And we have 4 books here as well. This is similar to the fantasy in that 2 of these I'm pretty set on keeping on this list, and then 2 of them I could be convinced otherwise. The first one is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. Then we have In Memoriam, I'm so bad at saying that word, by Alice Wynne, The Red Parts by Maggie Nelson, and Flight Behavior by Barbara Kingsolver. So with Maggie Nelson and Barbara Kingsolver, I just really want to carry on with reading stuff from them. It doesn't necessarily have to be these books, but I think having had a look at their backlist, that these are the 2 that I'm most interested in. But the other 2 I already have and own on my shelf, and so do want to pick those up very soon and prioritize them this year, because I'm trying to do my whole read my physical TBR kind of challenge this year. Okay, so that is the entire list in its entirety. Sorry, you might have to zoom in if I can show this all to you. This is all 26 books on my priority reads list. What do you think? What's your initial reactions? Do you think I'm gonna do it? I think I might do it this year. Actually, I'm pretty optimistic that I might actually manage to do it this year, and I'm feeling good about it. And because I'm feeling so good about it, I already made obviously my January TBR, so maybe I'll show you now what I've been prioritizing for the month of January from this list, and also the other books, because of course I never actually just sit here and work through this list from the beginning. Can you imagine if I actually did that? I could just get this done in like 2 months if I just read from this list. But for some reason, the idea of that is like absolutely terrifying to me, and I don't want to do it at all, which is quite funny because I do, obviously I've just written this list and these are books I want to read. Why do you think that is? Also, if you've noticed my, like, these little hairs at the top of my head, no, I haven't cut in a fringe. This is, I think, from my hair growing back after it all fell out. So that's kind of fun, but also looks like I've cut myself in a little micro fringe. I have to kind of hide them like this. Anyway, let's pull up my January TBR. This is a pineapple kombucha if anyone's interested. The drink of choice for today. Also, just I'd like to say I actually did pretty well on my TBR last year. The last one of the year, when I just was insane and put every single book on it. Obviously, a lot of them I only managed to finish in January. It took me a long time because they're really long. But I read everything except for 1, 2, 3, 4 books, which I think is kind of incredible. And I did put, they're all also 4 books that we've just talked about from the 25 priority list that are now on the 26 priority list. But also something I have going on this month is a ton of buddy reads and book clubs. So let's look at my January TBR. And look up here, there's proof that I did actually make this at the beginning of the month. I just didn't show you. But anyway, yeah, these are the book clubs and buddy reads that I'm doing this month. I have Snake Eater with my new D&D book club. That's going to be very fun. And I've started that on my Kindle. That's why it's in italics. The next one is obviously for the Reading Around the World book club, which we're doing Dictionary of the Khazars. And I started that live on my reading sprints. And yeah, absolutely wild. This is our book for Serbia, by the way. And we do a different book from a different country every single month. We're currently deciding which book we're going to be doing for February, but it's always a good time to join the book club if you want to join in and read from all around the world with people who give very insightful and interesting commentary over on Fable. It's completely free to join. It's just that we do all the decision making over on my Patreon. The current one in the lead for February, I think, is Haiti, but Fiji is very close behind. Anyway, the next one we have is Whereabouts. This one is a book by a author that I've just been really getting into, and I'm doing this as a buddy read with my friend Alice. And that one's just here. It's quite a skinny little book. Alice said actually that she started reading it and it is pretty quick going. Next one I have started and I'm about halfway through, and that is Mermaid of Black Conch. I have this copy of it, which is gorgeous, and this is with my friend book club. Next we have my priority reads list. Obviously we've just talked about this, the ones I'm going to be focusing on. I can't even remember why I made this decision, to be honest, but we're starting off with In Memoriam. Have I started it yet? No, not at all. Am I already regretting it? Maybe. Next we have Sophie's World. That was from last year. Just absolutely need to read this at some point, and filming this TBR is really going to make me focus on this, I think. And then we have Ducks, the one that I was talking about. From last month we have a couple here. That is Fingersmith and the Luminaries. Finish them both. Absolutely smash that out of the park. And then we have some other. So let's talk about the other ones I have. Should I have just really focused on my 26 list? Yes, probably. Now I'm kind of slightly regretting it, but it's already too late. First up, we have this big old chunky boy. How am I going to read this before the end of the month? I just need to basically just sit and read and not do much else, but I've been playing a new video game called Fields of Mistra and I've been loving it. And also for most of December and the beginning of January, I was playing a different video game called Blueprints. And that was incredible and took over my life. But now I've kind of burnt out of that one and now I've moved on. Anyway, we're talking about reading, not gaming. Yeah, so this is the second book in a series that started off with The Will of the Many. And I really, really love that one. Read it basically kind of in one sitting, which is nuts because it's about the same size as this one. I'm hoping that's going to be the same here. And also have heard really, really good things about this as a follow-up. So I'm just excited to read it and I wanted to put it on my TBR. Next up, we have a little Moomin book because I have this one on my physical TBR, put this on my TBR for the month. And then what did I proceed to do? I proceeded to listen to an audiobook version of a different Moomin book, not this one. Why did I do that? I don't know. Did I know I was doing it at the time? Yeah, I did. I could have just picked this one up to read it physically, but I wanted an audiobook, couldn't find this one on audio, listened to a different Moomin book on audio, so now I cannot tick this off my list because I read a different Moomin book. And yeah, so I will read this at some point, but look how cute it is. These are children's stories, but they are so weird and wonderful and strange about these Moomins and all these other creatures that just like live this beautiful life. And I don't know, it's really hard to describe this one, but I'll talk about it more when I've read it. And then the other one I wanted to read this month is this one, A Crime in the Neighborhood. I basically did just want to put some short books on the list for the beginning of the year to kind of like just get through them. And this one I was given for a video I did last year about the Women's Prize, because this won the Women's Prize in 1999, I think. And yeah, I'm just kind of interested to read it. So let's see if it's better than the ones that didn't win, which by the way, it's not, because I think the Poisonwood Bible was also on the long list that year, or the short list, and that obviously is one of the best books ever. So we'll see what I think of this one. And then the final two that I put on my list, one that I've already read, are you proud of me? Because I haven't started a lot of these, and that is Advent. It is about 80 pages long, so it took me a while to read this, weirdly. It's really beautiful. This is an Icelandic story about a man and his dog and his sheep, and they go out and basically try and save the sheep that were lost on the mountain before they freeze to death. And it's like a very beautiful story, but it's also very typically Icelandic. And I know that now because I've read two Icelandic books. But I did enjoy this one a lot more than the Helder Laxness one that I read. It just felt more touching and more like humanizing to the main character and also the animals. Yeah, it was a really beautiful book with a really beautiful cover. And I'm glad that I read it. And then the final one I have on my TBR is not this one, actually. I picked up the wrong book. It's this one, The Employees by Olga Ravin. Oh, I think I've got fluff in my eye, so sorry if I'm blinking a lot. But I read The Wax Child recently by this author, and I did enjoy it, although it was a little bit too abstract for me. But then when I saw this in a bookshop, and it was sci-fi, and it sounded really weird and interesting, there's all these little vignettes kind of thing. It's about this group of people who live on a spaceship and they find like these objects, I think from an ancient Earth, and about like what they do with them, the connection they feel to these objects. And I'm excited to read it. So that is the TBR for this month and also for this year. Shall I try and put them all in one? Yeah, I will, because I traditionally do and then drop them. That's the TBR for Jan, and I've already talked you through my TBR for the year. What do you think of it? Do you think I'm being too ambitious for January? Should I just have focused on my 2026 list? Almost definitely. I'm realising that now, especially because it is the 18th of January and I have really, really already gotten behind. But I hope that this was a fun video for you to watch. I want to say a huge, huge thank you to my Patreons for supporting me and for supporting this channel and for making this the best place to be on the internet. I love you guys so, so much, and thank you so much for making this small community be a thriving one. I would love to know, do you make a priority list for the year? How many books are on that priority list? Because this is kind of getting crazy. To put 26 on a priority list is starting to feel not like a priority anymore. So I was kind of like having mixed opinions about that. I did do it anyway and it was really fun. Do you do monthly TBRs even? Like, how do you decide what books you're reading? Or are you a pure mood reader? I couldn't do that because I just don't think I'd pick up anything unless I make it into a fun challenge for myself, and then I'm really glad that I do it. But overall, I'm just really looking forward to another gorgeous year of reading. Honestly, the stuff I've read, or the stuff I've finished definitely in January, has been absolutely top notch, and it seems wild to say, but I think that 2 books that I finished, which you might already know from context clues in this video, are going to be on my best books of 2026 list, which is crazy, but it's just been such a strong start, and I want to keep that ball rolling, keep that momentum going, keep all these books looking like they're 5 stars. So let me know, what did you start off the year with? Do you do TBRs? And if you watched this video to the end, then please include an orange in your as an emoji in your comment, or just leave me an orange emoji, because this has been sitting here this whole time. And did you know that winter is orange season? I didn't know that until very recently. A friend told me, and I was astounded. And now I realise I kind of want to look that up, because did she mean all oranges? Anyway, it inspired me to pick up oranges. And let me tell you, they're sweet and delicious, so they may as well be in season. Anyway, that's enough yapping from me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye!